Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
First, a word from our sponsor. The Daily Compliance News for December 8, 2021, the Real Estate Scrutiny Edition. And we begin with that story from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal. Richard Vandeford reporting that the real estate sector faces possible stepped-up regulatory scrutiny comparable to controls affecting banks as a part of U.S. push to fight money laundering. FinCEN said it would seek public comment on its plan to apply more scrutiny to all cash real estate transactions. It's well known that lots of money launderers hide their money laundering, ill-gotten gain, through cash purchases of real estate, both in the United States and abroad. So this is obviously a welcome move. Next up, the Rohingya refugees from Myanmar are suing the company formerly known as Facebook, i.e. Meta, for $150 billion over allegations the social media company did not take action against the hate speech, which contributed to the violence and death and murders of many of them by the Myanmar government. It's, I think, pretty well documented what Facebook did not do in allowing this hate speech to run rampant, and it's been part of their internal criticisms of themselves. Next up, also from the Wall Street Journal, the Treasury Department, it aims to ensure it will cost companies less than $50 per company on average to comply with new beneficial ownership rules. FinCEN wants to keep the assessing, or rather the costs low for small businesses who now have to comply with AML rules. So we're going to see how that plays out. And finally, in the Washington Post, Janet Yellen and Samantha Power wrote an op-ed piece today that to uphold democracy, the United States must fight global corruption. Obviously, the global scourge of corruption cost the world, it's estimated $3 trillion annually. But now I think people are beginning to see the connection between corruption and the overthrows of democracy. Any place you have events where democracy is put at risk, you can bet there's corruption involved. Whether that corruption is bribery and corruption, whether that corruption is money laundering, whether that corruption is buying big properties, real estate properties with cash. So the Biden administration has recognized corruption as a national security interest of the United States. Certainly a very different view from the prior administration. But given the events of January 6th, we've seen how corruption played into the hands of the insurrectionists there as well. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.